My name is Willie. I'm curled up in the pitch-black cleaning closet, the stinging smell of bleach and dust filling my nostrils. My right arm is broken, swollen grotesquely, and the pain is so intense that every breath sends a shiver through my body. The door is inches from my face, and the only light is a thin yellow glow seeping through the crack near the floor. It's enough to show me the mangled state of my arm, already turning the color of wet plums. Outside, I can hear them moving around in my kitchen. The tapping of plates, the closing of cabinets, and the fake, sweet voice of Stella, my son's wife. She lost control again, and my son, Jake, just went along with it. His footsteps fade away as if he owns this place, and maybe he thinks he does. A few hours ago, my neighbor, Grace, was in this very kitchen. She was laughing as she pushed a single candle into a homemade cake. I can still taste the frosting she smeared on my cheek and hear her off-key but warm humming of happy birthday. Now, the silence between the sounds outside the door feels like it's going to swallow me whole. Jake said I needed to calm down, as if that had anything to do with the way his fingers dug into my wrist before he twisted it. As if I imagined finding Stella with my wallet open and my money in her hand. The pain keeps dragging me back to the present, but I reach into my apron pocket. My phone is still there. Instead of calling 911, I scroll to a name I haven't spoken to in years. When he answers, I whisper, "Owen, it's Willie. My son broke my arm, and I'm not letting them get away with this." As Owen's voice fades and the call ends, the closet seems to tilt around me. The pain is so bad that it blurs the edges of everything. But I force myself to breathe slowly. I know that if I let panic take over, I'll lose my last bit of sanity. How did I let my life reach this point? How did I let them into my house? And just like that, the past comes flooding back. For years ago, I was standing at my kitchen counter, kneading dough for a loaf of bread. It was something I did on days when I felt lonely. The afternoon sun was shining through the window, warming the old wooden table, and the smell of yeast filled the room. I'd been living alone for 15 years since my husband, Henry, passed away. Even now, I can close my eyes and picture the way he leaned on the doorframe, teasing me about over baking for the neighbors. That day, the same doorframe was filled by Jake, my son, and a woman I'd never seen before. "Mom," he called out in that hopeful voice I hadn't heard since he was a kid. "I want you to meet someone." I wiped my hands on a kitchen towel and turned around. Jake stood there, his shoulders back and his chin up, as if he wanted me to approve of everything right away. Beside him, a bit behind, was Stella. She was 28 at the time, with her hair neatly pulled back and eyes that were just a bit too wide to be completely innocent. She had that practiced customer service smile, warm and ready to adjust depending on my reaction. She stepped forward and held out a container of takeout pizza. "We didn't want you to cook after a long day," she said. "Jake told me you're always on your feet." Her voice was gentle, but there was an underlying tone of control, like she was declaring herself the new boss of my kitchen. Still, I forced a smile and thanked her. I was raised to be polite first. That night, we sat around my small dining table. They told me how they met at a fitness center where she worked as a receptionist. Jake said he thought she had the kindest smile, and she admired his dedication to his job as a mechanic. She touched his arm lightly as she talked, giving him those looks that made him feel special. Jake needed that. His previous relationship had left him lost. When Stella excused herself to take a phone call, I leaned in towards Jake. "She seems nice," I whispered. He looked relieved, almost like a boy again. "She really is, Mom. I think this could be something serious." When she came back, she was more subdued. She asked me about my back pain, about living alone, and if I felt safe in the neighborhood. She tilted her head with concern, and her eyebrows moved just enough to seem sincere. I didn't realize it then, but she was sizing me up, looking for my weaknesses. A week later, they came back with a box of cookies and a plan. "Your house is big for one person," Stella said as she poured me a cup of coffee. "What if we stay with you for a while? just until we save up for a down payment on a place of our own. We can help around the house. Jake looked at me with those tired, hopeful eyes, and I caved in. I thought about the quiet evenings when the TV was my only company, and how I counted the days between Jake's visits, afraid of being a burden. I also thought about my age and how the world was getting a bit harder to navigate. So, I said yes. I remember how Jake hugged me, and I could feel his gratitude. I also remember how Stella walked through my hallway, running her fingers along the picture frames, smiling as if she already owned the place. They moved in before the end of the month. The house started to change quickly, at first in small ways. Stella brought scented candles that smelled like pine and mint, replacing the vanilla ones I'd always used. She rearranged my toolbox, saying it would be easier to find things. She folded my clothes in a different style and said my way was old-fashioned. She even suggested taking down Henry's old motorcycle photo, saying it didn't fit the new look of the house. Jake agreed without a second thought. I told myself it was okay, that people change and families grow together. But one morning, I went into the garage and found my toolbox emptied. All my wrenches, screwdrivers, and pliers were gone. In their place were a few new, sleek tools in a plastic case. When I asked Stella about it, she barely looked up from her phone. I simplified things so you wouldn't get confused, she said. Her words stung more than the action. Confused? I'd been using those tools for 50 years. Jake just kissed her and thanked her for being thoughtful. I started to notice other things disappearing. The old radio I'd had since I was a girl, the lucky coin Henry gave me on our first date. Whenever I asked about them, Stella would give me that soft, sorry smile and say she must have misplaced them. Jake would just echo her. One afternoon, I went outside to get the mail and found the mailbox wide open. Letters were scattered all over the porch. When I picked them up, I saw that some envelopes from my bank were torn. Inside were notices about large withdrawals from my savings account, which I rarely touched. I was furious. I asked Stella if she'd opened the mail. She didn't even flinch. I just wanted to make sure you didn't miss anything important, she said, as if rummaging through my finances was a kindness. That night, I lay awake, trying to think clearly. I'd always managed my money well. Henry trusted me with all our bills, and I still balanced my checkbook every week. Why was Jake so quick to believe Stella and think I was the one with the problem? The next morning, I went into my bedroom to get a sweater. I froze. Stella was standing in front of my dresser, my wallet open in her hands. I saw the bills inside, and I saw her thumb sliding across them. When she noticed me, she quickly closed the wallet and put on her sweetest smile. I was just checking if you'd paid the electric bill, she said. I pointed out that the bill wasn't in my bedroom. She just shrugged and said, older people sometimes put things in strange places. My chest tightened, and I could hardly breathe. Later that afternoon, when they went out for dinner, I went into their room. My hands were shaking so much that I had to hold on to the door frame. The top drawer of the dresser was slightly open. Inside, I found envelopes full of cash, and some of my jewelry that I hadn't seen in months. There was also a small notebook with numbers, dates, and amounts. My heart sank. I took pictures with my phone, trying to stay calm. But even as I put everything back, I felt a part of me break. It wasn't a physical break, but something deep inside that left me hollow. When they came home, I planned to wait until morning to talk to them with facts, not just emotions. But Stella must have found the pictures while I was napping. Her voice rang through the house, feigning outrage. She called Jake as if she'd found a crime. By the time I got to the living room, Jake was holding my phone, his eyes full of disbelief and anger. I tried to explain, but Stella buried her face in his chest, crying about how violated she felt. Jake deleted the pictures without letting me finish. He looked at me with pity, not love. You must be confused, Mom, he said. Stella is just trying to help you. Maybe living alone for so long has made you forget things. That moment hurt more than any physical pain. It was then that I realized I was losing not only my home but also my son. The night of my birthday started off well. Grace was in the kitchen, making a small cake. The smell of cinnamon and sugar filled the air. She was humming and smiling, and for a brief moment, I felt happy. But as the sun started to set, I felt a sense of dread. I kept looking towards the driveway, listening for the sound of their car. They arrived just as Grace was packing up the leftover cake. The front door opened without a knock, and Stella walked in first, wearing a tight workout outfit. Jake followed, carrying a store-bought cake. He put it on the table without even looking at me. "We didn't know you had company," Stella said, smiling thinly at Grace. "We wanted to surprise you." Grace's face tightened, but she was polite. "I won't stay long. Just wanted to bring my friend a birthday treat." Stella's smile wavered for a second but then came back. "How nice." Jake mumbled a happy birthday, Mom, but didn't hug me or even take off his jacket. They stood in my kitchen like strangers, not the people who had taken over my life. When Grace left, she squeezed my hand a bit too hard, and her eyes lingered on my face, as if she knew something was wrong. As soon as the door closed, the house seemed to go silent. I went to my bedroom to get a sweater, and when I opened the door, there was Stella again, with my wallet open on the dresser. This time, she didn't even try to hide it. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice cracking with anger. She looked up slowly, annoyed. "I told you, Willie, you mixed up the money again." "I'm sorting it out." "I didn't mix up anything," I said, stepping closer and holding out my hand. "Give me my wallet." She didn't give it back right away. She lifted her chin, as if she thought she'd already won. She thought I was too old and weak to fight back. But then she smirked, and that was the last straw. I grabbed the wallet from her hands, harder than I intended. She stumbled back and gasped dramatically, as if I'd hit her. "Jake!" she screamed. She attacked me. Jake came running down the hallway. His face was pale with shock. "Mom, what are you doing?" "I didn't attack her," I said. "She was stealing from me again." Stella touched her cheek as if she expected to find a bruise. She pushed me hard, and I almost fell. "I didn't push her," I insisted. "I just took back what's mine." Jake stepped towards me, his eyes wide and full of a mix of panic and anger. "Mom, you can't just push people. You're not well. This isn't normal." The betrayal in his voice stunned me. "I'm not the one who isn't normal," I whispered. "Look around you, Jake. Look at what's happening to me." But he wasn't listening. He grabbed my wrist and squeezed hard. I felt the pressure, then the pain, and then a loud snap. Everything went white for a second. I heard myself scream, Stella gasp, and Jake shout my name. But the sound that stuck with me was the sickening crunch of my bone breaking. He dragged me towards the closet, babbling about me needing to calm down. I was in so much pain that I could hardly think. He pushed me inside and closed the door. The lock clicked, and I was in the dark. I slid to the floor, breathing in the harsh smell of cleaners. My broken arm throbbed with every heartbeat. Outside, I could hear Stella's voice, telling Jake he'd done the right thing. Just when I thought all was lost, I remembered the phone in my pocket. I pulled it out with shaking fingers and called Owen. In the dark, I told him the truth. Owen's voice was calm. He told me to stay quiet and keep the phone on. I clutched it like a lifeline. I heard his car pull up faster than any ambulance. Then came the pounding on the front door. "Open the door." Owen's voice boomed. Something in his firmness broke through the spell that Stella and Jake had cast over themselves. I heard Jake fumbling with the lock and his shaky apology. Owen walked straight past him, found the closet, and opened the door. The light from the kitchen was like a ray of hope. He crouched beside me and saw my arm. Without wasting time, he called 911. When the paramedics arrived, Stella tried to say I'd slipped, but Owen gave her a look that silenced her. At the hospital, the truth started to come out. The doctors noticed the angle of the break, the bruises on my wrist, and the fear in my voice. They contacted Adult Protective Services, and the police came to take my statement. I told them everything, from the missing money to the mailbox and Stella going through my things. Grace also came and told them what she'd seen and felt. Once the investigation started, things moved quickly. Bank cameras showed Stella using my card to withdraw money. There were records of forged checks. A background check revealed that she'd done similar things in other states. She was arrested a week later when she tried to leave town. Jake came to the hospital looking like a shell of himself. He kept apologizing, but the hurt between us was deep. The law gave me the option to press charges against him, but I didn't. I also didn't comfort him. Some wounds need time to heal. Months passed. My arm healed slowly, still a bit stiff on rainy days. Stella was in prison, and her sentence gave me more than just my money back. It gave me clarity. Jake started therapy, and although our relationship is still fragile, we meet for coffee twice a month at a small diner. The air there feels neutral, like a fresh start. As for me, I went back to my home and transformed the closet. I painted the walls a soft green, added a small table, a chair, and a bookshelf. It's now my safe place, where the memory of that terrible night has lost its power. Sometimes, I sit there with a cup of tea and think about how a single phone call in the dark saved me, and how I found the strength to stand up for myself.